And we are back. Did you miss us? That's Andrew Guy. I'm Rich Slayton. This is the World Cyber Games in Xi'an, China, and we're here with match 2 of our second day. GameWith facing off against EDGM.
Yeah, GameWith yesterday fell to Team Liquid on that final game win by Diego B, who honestly came up against a lot of hard counters in his best-of-3 set, or I guess three-game set, not best-of-3 set. Team Liquid came out on top, GameWith trying to bounce back today, but KK is not coming out in that 1v1 set, as you're seeing right now on your screen. It will be Rolla Perone with the ban of Baby Dragon going up against EDGM's Higher, who has banned Lightning.
Higher has been on a lot of places in CRL China, spending some time with OP Gaming before heading to EDGM in this last season. Of course, also plays for China and CR Nations. Rolla Perone has been with Ponos for a while before moving to GameWith after last season. So, enjoying his new position during the actual group, came in #1 in CRL Asia, and then, of course, falling in playoffs to his former squad.
Yeah, Rolla Perone actually not having a very successful season so far on his own, only being 48% in win rate here with 13-4 in head-to-head play. So maybe GameWith trying to get him out, get his confidence built up for the rest of this WCG.
Higher likes to play a lot of Lava Clone and Expo, not looking like either one of those two things at this moment. Although we've seen some meta shifts here, and it looks like Rolla Perone going with the most successful of the Goblin Giant Sparky decks from this last season, the Musketeer Fireball Lumberjack variation, which I believe went maybe 11 or 15 wins and just 2 losses.
Oh, this is bad, Rich. This is very bad.
And that's going to be a big Sparky shot.
Tower down.
And there you have it, Rolla Perone going with the most successful deck of the CRL West season and making it look easy in game #1 against Higher.
Now here's the thing about this deck is, although Gob Giant Sparky is so very effective offensively, defensively as well, look at the responses. You have the guards to pick up a Prince Charge, you have the Sparky to take out tanks, you got the Lumberjack to take out tanks, and of course the Musketeer with the recent, well, I guess kind of recent, damage buff. So many responses for Rolla Perone to just kind of sit back for the next minute of gameplay.
Yeah, and the minor control, just, you know, you've probably heard this before from us, but minor control being down a tower, not a great position. So, yeah. I mean, being down the tower, never a great position, but with minor control, maybe even worse.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many decks out there that can kind of bounce back, like the Gob Giant Sparky deck. If you are down a tower, you know, those types of decks, Lava Loon or Golem or, you know, 3 Musketeers, you kind of sacrifice damage on one tower to create an elixir advantage. However, when you're playing a control deck, you never want to be down in damage. And right now, there is basically no way for Higher to come back in the next 20 seconds.
So Rolla Perone, despite having a challenging regular season, opens up his WCG run with a nice win over Higher.
Higher was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Went 13-4 in the regular season, now 1-0 here in WCG.
Yeah, and Higher on the other side of it, 27-24, just 53% win rate in his head-to-head play. So only 5% higher than Rolla Perone, but does fall early with this minor control.
So game #1 in the books for Asia, and things beginning to look more and more dire potentially for the entire Chinese region.
Yeah, right now CRL Asia is just rolling on essentially, what is it, I believe now 7 of 3 on the day. 7-3 on the day, doing very, very well. You saw Ponos taking down Nova Esports, and we had a moment, or I guess I should say you had a moment to go and speak with some of the teams in between the matches, and you told me after that 2v2 set from Nova, they were all playing on tilt. We saw what happened with Xi'an only taking 1 of his 6 games today.
Yeah, Xi'an just did have a struggle. He was kind of surprised by having so much trouble in 2v2, and then it affected his 1v1. And some of you follow on Twitter might notice Unstoppable mentioned challenges with the curved phone. Some players have had problems with misclicks there. Xi'an had one with a snowball, so of course that will hurt you more as well. But back to the subject at hand, taking a look at GameWith, we've talked a lot about the camaraderie among the CRL West teams, kind of helping each other prepare for this event. And in the Asian region, you forget that GameWith and Ponos are both Japanese squads, and between these two matches, I was in the player pool, and I saw Ponos consulting with GameWith, helping them prepare for this match against EDGM.
And if I'm GameWith, I'm listening to what Ponos has to say, especially after that dominant performance in the first match of the day. Now EDGM making their WCG debut, trying to take a game away from GameWith. And also, just to remind you, because of the curved screen, which I, in fact, love, this whole event is sponsored by our good friends over at Samsung.
Yeah, I mean, you can see around here a lot of crazy stuff. The robot fighting, the singing exhibition, there's VR, there's 5G. I mean, you can't get bored in this, but it's not that much.
It is absolutely astounding, the amount of things going on behind us. So much fun, but let's focus at the matter at hand. Right now, GameWith coming out very, very strong. Will Hire be able to bounce back in game number 2, Rich?
You know, that's obviously the question at hand. Rolla Perone is so experienced despite the struggles he had this season. He's been around for a long time now. Hire, of course, also has his experience in CRL China, but it feels like, especially with the World Final experience of last year, that Rolla Perone might have more experience in high-pressure situations.
Yeah, and you wonder, talking about that high pressure, how EDGM feels right now knowing that they need to bring home some wins for CRL China.
So small cycle card split, Rolla Perone spinning archers in the back, so might we see some expo here from Rolla Perone potentially?
And speaking on the knockout playoffs, we saw a couple people in the Twitch chat asking about, is it just a specific team or is it the whole region that goes into the knockout phase? It is the region that makes it through to the knockout phase. It will be one region against another.
So Rolla Perone showing more and more of what looks like it might be 2.9 Expo. Expo struggled a lot in CRL West, did not get a single win at all in the CRL Western region. Yeah. You gotta imagine bans were a part of that. With no lightning on the board, that does give a little bit more help to an Expo deck. And there you go, first one up.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that was very surprising. Early on in the season, hearing about no bans, we heard a lot of pros talk about, oh, we're gonna see nothing but ISPO and nothing but draws. But they could not have been more wrong. Even the best players in the world of Expo, like Wen, like Carnage, could just not get a win with their comfort deck.
So here we go, 2.9 against Piggies. Very curious to see how Hire plays this Piggies deck with the Goblin Cage in.
I was just going to say, it's such an ability to create dual lane pressure with that Goblin Cage. You get it down to tank for a building, and then all of a sudden you throw Piggies split at the river, one being tanked for by the Dark Prince, one side being tanked for by the Goblin Cage, and all of a sudden your opponent has so much to deal with.
So Rolla Perone playing it nice and slow, no risks here in single elixir time.
And you're going to see the pigs split a lot. Oh! And you talked about the curved screen, Rich. That's a big moment right there where that curved screen from the Galaxy is not helping Rolla Perone out. A big miss on the Fireball, which is a great counter to those Royal Hogs.
Yeah, you gotta have the case on it. You gotta be able to prevent that touch on the edge. And you know, some players have some grip issues that create some challenges for them this season, and you saw one right there.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked about BK Booya's power stance kind of jokingly, but in all seriousness, there are so many different ways that these pros hold their phones. Not everyone just holds their phone. They don't hold their phone the same way, so you see a lot of these misclicks happening, whether it's in 2v2 from Chaos Theory, or right now you saw from Rolla Perone with that Fireball.
And that puts him in a big hole. That's a game-changing moment potentially.
Yeah, definitely, Rich. You know, and I was just going to say, in that moment, you're going to see Hire splitting his picks a lot. That way, the Fireball is not as effective from Rolla Perone, but that missed click is going to be a really tough thing to bounce back from, especially with 2.9. But as you know, being an Expo player, one Expo lock is devastating.
It can change everything, but Hire has so many responses that make it difficult to find that lock. Can get around really quickly. You know, I don't expect him to be too far down on Elixir. Here we go. This is a big opportunity. But look at that. Goblin Brawler going one direction, Dark Prince opposite direction, and with the Musketeer behind. Yeah. Hire in a great spot.
Perfect positioning on that Musketeer, knowing the Dark Prince was going to charge ahead and tank for it. Very well played by Hire there, who is in a big amount of control at this moment.
And, you know, Hire's deck also does cycle fairly quickly. Not as fast, of course, as 2.9, but look at this. He is going to be able to consistently get down responses and play defense here. It's going to be a challenge for Rolla Perone to find a way through.
Oh, wow. Hogs come in. That's Fireball value and a half right there. And this is a dangerous moment.
That Ice Golem was very, very nice, but again, take a look at it, just still behind. Look at that, only one Elixir right now for Rolla Perone. He is so far behind on tempo.
He went all in on defense there and still not able to get a lock. And Higher now at 10 Elixir once again, going to be able to play very, very simple defense and just chip away with spells at this moment.
It's going to be a big question of how he does choose to get that tower damage for Higher. And you see going for the split, the Tesla High pulls all the picks the same lane. Oh, but this is massive.
That's going to do it. There's just too much going in. Goblin Brawler unaffected, taking for that Dark Prince. That is going to do it. Very, very well played by Higher with the misclick from Rolla Perone. Now, you got to remember, everyone misclicks. Every pro in the world misclicks. It just happens. There's so many things going on every second, so many micro interactions. You can't really hang it over their heads when it happens. It happens to everyone.
Well, especially that particular kind of misclick can be so frustrating. Although I will say this, while that might have been what allowed his opponent Higher to get all the way through at the end, I don't know if that 2.9 had a great shot of breaking through against that deck. You saw the way that Higher just kept on staggering troops. It was tanky enough to pick up the aggro from the Expo, but not so expensive he was ever behind.
Yes, exactly. The Goblin Cage, the Dark Prince, you have the Musketeer there. And if any of that's being tanked for, you just go in with the bats. And if worst case comes to worst, you got the Fireball, you got the Log to mitigate most of the health of that Expo. It was just a horrible matchup for Rolla Perone. And, you know, you throw that misclick in there, and there's just no way to bounce back from it.
So here we are. With Rolla Perone now 1-1 against Higher. Game number 3 coming your way in a moment. And you got to wonder now, Higher also being an Expo player, will he go and fire back the opposite direction and kind of put a stamp on it?
You know, I'll be honest. I don't know how well it performed. We don't have all the deck information from CRL Asia and CRL China. But if they watched the CRL West and if they saw how it performed today, and with Goblin Cage being so prevalent in the meta right now, I think you just leave it alone.
And that was interesting here because Goblin Cage does pick up an Expo, but the Expo can target the tower during that brief gap between the Brawler coming out. But what you saw from Higher was the ability to make sure something was down in that interim. So when Goblin Cage pops, there was something there to pick up the aggro, and then the Brawler comes through. Just a really tough place to break through for Rolla Perone.
Yeah, it's a really good point that you make. You have to make sure that you've got one unit on the field to tank for that half second that the cage pops and the Brawler comes out, whether it's an Ice Spirit, whether it's Skeletons, something cheap ideally, because then in turn you can create a big counter push.
So Higher adds one more game to his overall win rate throughout this season. Of course, this is WCG, separate from CRL. During CRL, went 53% in head-to-head play with a couple draws in there as well. So continues to perform admirably. And now we come to game number 3 in this 3-game set. Who will take it, Rolla Perone or Higher?
And just to remind you at home, this is not the CRL World Finals. This is the World Cyber Games. This is the Olympics of video games. This is very different than what we do back at home.
Miner to the inside, still picked up by the Dark Prince. One tower off the number 3 spot. So you saw that Dark Prince get the nice pickup. Higher here cycles E-Wiz in the back. Fireball getting some nice value there.
Very cheap cycle deck already coming out from Higher.
I'm wondering if Rolla Perone just hit copy deck.
Yeah, maybe, huh?
Oh, no.
Nope.
Okay. For a second there, it felt like it.
Thanks, Rolla Perone.
Thanks, Rolla. Dark Prince coming to meet the Ice Mist near the bridge. First minute down, and so far it is the Ponos player with a slight lead.
I love how fast this deck cycles. You got 2 1 Elixir cards, you got two Elixir card, a 3 Elixir card. Going to be a lot for Rolla Perone to keep up with.
Little concerning here for Higher, though, that his first 2 miners both played 1 tile off.
That's a very good point.
You gotta wonder if Higher, I don't know this, if Higher is a tablet player typically, and switching from tablet to a phone, being those squares are just smaller.
A nice pickup on the Ice was there, and that's a great point that you make, Rich. You know, Bookmac yesterday did a very, very good job, and when he did finally lose his 3rd match against KK, it was a very, very hard matchup, that Mega Knight Skelly Barrel deck against Royal Giant, I believe. But Bookmac is known for being a tablet player, and having to convert over to a phone that you don't use is very difficult. And these edges, the curved edges, it's not about a misclick, it's about the side of your hand touching the screen when you reach across the phone.
Yeah, just, if you have that phone, put a case on it.
Yes.
So here we go, heading into double Elixir time. 2 Dark Princes heading down the left-hand lane. Higher pitching a pretty clean game so far here at number 3. And a nice miner in the back. That Dark Prince barely picked up by the Goblin Cage. Good idea from Higher, well defended by Rolla Perone. a good job holding on, and now Rolla Perone does put the Royal Giant in the back. Miner again, one tile off and picked up. So despite the Miner challenges so far, Higher is ahead by a fairly solid margin.
Inferno Tower comes down, a card we've seen a lot less since the recent nerf.
But this is one big difference between CRL, Asia, and China versus the West. You know, there's sort of a reputation idea. The West tends to overreact to nerfs. So you've seen Inferno Tower pretty much disappear from the West. Here you see it being used effectively in this matchup by Higher.
Keeping up the pressure is Higher, trying to get that barb in. He will get a swing.
And that's two big swings on a 631. And Andrew, a big part of this Inferno Tower being viable in this situation, the lightning ban.
Yep. Yeah, lightning beam.
No way to reset. Nothing for Rolla Perone in that situation.
Nice high skellies there. We'll distract Dark Prince for just half a second. A lot to deal with though right now. Rolla Perone going all in at the bridge.
Dark Prince E was just trying to freeze the Ice Spirit, lending its support as well. Interesting NATO there.
Miner coming in to tank for these units and actually pulled backwards. Very, very nice turn of events there for Higher.
And this
Poison in, that is going to do it.
And Higher comes from behind, gets the last two games, so ends up taking the set 2-1. Very, very well played by the EDGM player.
Yeah, very well played. The reverse sweep coming out for Higher, who now looked very, really a little bit shaky in the first game, bouncing back. That very quick cycle deck, that Miner cycle deck, I loved it. Very fun, played good defense. He talked about the lightning bang on the Inferno Tower. No way for that RG to break through. Now, it did look like there was a moment where Rolla Perone was putting on the pressure at the bridge, but defended very, very nicely, and the units being pulled backwards allowed that Miner to tank for them, and it was game over for Rolla Perone.
Yeah, very, very well played by Higher, even with some of those slight misplacements on the Miner. I'd be very curious to see if he typically is a tablet player or plays on a larger device most of the time, whether it be like one of the big old, those phones that really are tablets but you put in your pocket anyway for some reason.
One of these.
So, you know, we'll go ahead during the break and get some information on that from him, but there you have it, the first 1v1 set in the books. Higher taking a very important 2 games, not just for his team, but for China as well.
Exactly. So now we have the 2v2 coming your way. We have Yakitori and Yui Hiro going up against Solomon and Nuo Maisi, I believe is how it's pronounced. Nuo Maisi.
Okay.
We'll find out. I hope it's correct.
It's possible. We'll check on that one. We'll be back in a little bit with your 2v2.